Good evening, parents. My name is Latricia Baker, and I am the supervisor of secondary science. And I'm going to share with you tonight on the topic of creating a positive reaction in middle school science. So we're going to talk about the eighth grade assessment, and then how can you as parents help your students to prepare. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and start to share my screen. So we're just going to get started first with some just facts about the assessment. So which state students take the assessment? This assessment is taken by both, oh, I'm so sorry. This assessment is taken by both eighth grade students and seventh grade students who are in comprehensive science to accelerated. The test is usually in the window begins this year in February and ends in April. And our DCPS testing office determines the initial date that each student or that each school will test, and then subsequent dates are determined by the school. This is a paper-based exam, and it is a 2 80-minute session assessment. In elementary school, the students had 2 days to complete the 2 80-minute sessions. This year in eighth grade, they will only have 1 day to complete the 2 80-minute sessions. So that's something that is new for your student. The last time they took a science assessment was fifth grade, and they had 2 days. So they will only have 1 day to take the 2 80-minute sessions. The test ranges from 60 to 66 questions, and they will have a combination of low, moderate, and high questions. Some things that I want to make sure that as parents, um, you understand is that students are not permitted to have any electronic devices during this assessment. They will have an area where they can be kept with the teacher, but just know that if a phone is found in a possession of a student, any student that is taking the assessment in that same setting, their test will be invalidated. So please, please, please remind your students that they can bring them. The teacher will collect them, and they need to be in the turn off mode. Teachers usually have baggies where they collect them, put them in, students write their name and their student number on them, and they will return them after the assessment. Again, it's so important that if you could also stress that at home, the students can have their test and all other tests invalidated. um it is that's a very big thing, and it's happened in a couple of situations. So it's always good that if the parents know, they can reinforce those things at home. So we're going to talk about kind of how the test is broken down, so that you as the parent will know um, they what types of questions the students will see, and kind of what the topics are. If your student starts the test and then has to leave campus before completing it, um, this is the first year that they will be allowed to return to a test session. Previously, if they leave after starting a test, they weren't able to complete that session, but the new rules and mandates allow them to complete a session that they've started, if they have to leave for any reason, whether they get sick or something like that. If your student has an IEP, an individual education plan, or a Section 504 plan, the accommodations will be provided for this assessment. So on the breakdown of the test, 19% of the test is what we call nature of science. These are just basic how does science work questions. So it will deal with theories, laws, hypotheses, models, and how to conduct a scientific experiment. You can see on the screen, this is an example or a sample question. It's also very important to note that what you see on the screen is what is considered a low question. So this is probably one of the easier questions that students will have to answer. There are definitely questions on this assessment where your student will have to scroll through a page or so of information prior to being asked the question. So reading stamina and test taking stamina is also important. So that's something that as a parent you can stress to your student as well. The next section of the test comprises about 27% of the questions that your student will see on the test, and this is Earth and space. So this is Earth and space and time, so stars, planets, all of those types of things. Earth structures, so volcanoes, earthquakes, any type of landforms, and then earth systems and patterns. So anything that either builds up or breaks down the earth. This is an example. In this example question, there is an image. This assessment is very image heavy. There will be images, charts, and graphs that students will have to interpret in order to answer questions on this assessment. The next section of the assessment is the physical science portion. It is also 27% of the test. This includes properties of matter, changes in matter, forms of energy, energy transfer and transformations, forces and changes in motion. Again, this sample question that you see here is, it has an image, excuse me, it has an image. And so again, these questions on this assessment are very image heavy. There will be questions that won't have an image or a chart or a graph, but most of the assessment items will have some type of image, chart, or graph. So making sure that your student is interpreting graphs, looking at charts, reading images, and it doesn't even always have to be science, just as long as you're, as the parent, encouraging them to tell you what they learned from an image or a chart or a graph, because that is really what they will have to do on the assessment, analyze these images, charts, and graphs to answer the question. The next section of the assessment, or the last section of the assessment, is life science, and that's also 27% of the test. This is going to be the organization and development of living organisms, evolution of living organisms, heredity and reproduction, interdependence of matter and energy, and then the matter and energy transformations. Again, you see here that this one has an image. This one will require them to identify what is happening at point X. So they will have to be familiar with the cycles that their teacher has been working with them on, and then determine what's happening at a point in this particular cycle. Some resources that your students use in class, but that can also be used at home, are their textbooks. The textbooks are consumable textbooks, so they can write directly in those textbooks and bring those pages home. This year, we've added 2 new practice platforms. The Study Island practice platform is all about remediating a standard. So once a standard has been taught, students can go here to get reminders, and this one has practice questions that they can use as well. But it just reinforces a standard after it has been taught by your student's teacher. The Gizmo online platform is a lab simulation platform where your student that needs reinforcement on the actual labs that the students have been doing in class. This is an online lab platform where they can go through simulations of labs that they have either done in class or didn't get a chance to do in class. And again, this platform is good because all of our questions on our assessment are scenario based. So this gives them more experience with different scenarios, so they have the experiences to connect to the content. And then finally, most classrooms have some type of science notebook, whether it is a composition book, which they call an interactive journal, or just a regular notebook in which the teacher will have the students keep their notes, any lab investigation, conclusions, and questions that they've had during the class period. These will all be in this notebook. So that's also a good resource for your student to study from. So as you are preparing your student, you want to make sure that they are using those science resources that we just went over. You want to make sure that they are practicing SSA style questions. That is just the state science assessment. That's all that stands for. But we want to make sure that they are practicing with those types of questions. Again, that Study Island platform they can access at home. So can they also access that Gizmos platform at home. Another good resource is Brain Pop. It's a free resource. There are some embedded in their book where they can, it has the link to the Brain Pop, and their book is also digital. So they can click on those Brain Pops, and it gives them an explanation of the topic. It gives them some follow-up questions. And then as a parent, you can also see what's coming up for your student as far as the standard that they're working on in class. If you go to the or not the FLDOE, I'm sorry, the DCPS, duvalschools.org website, you can find the year at a glance, the YAG that I have circled here. It shows you the standards that your student will be learning each 9 weeks. So you can kind of get a glimpse of what they're learning this 9 weeks, where they'll be going next 9 weeks, and they are in order of how we teach them. So the way you find this is duvalschools.org, and then you go to departments and then science, and then underneath science, you'll see down here, you can find that middle school year at a glance, and they're listed there by the courses. So you just choose your child's course, which is going to be the Comp Science 3 or grade 8 course. And that will allow you to see what they are learning by the 9 weeks, and it is in order of how the teachers will teach those topics. Lastly, where you can find more information about the assessment itself is the FLDOE website, and you can just look up grade 8 science assessment. They have all of the details about the testing environment and kind of what students will be tested on. They do have a very short, believe it's only 12 question practice exam, but it allows the students to get a feel for what the platform will be. They're gonna take their test is paper based, but it allows them to see the layout, and it is online, but it allows them to see how the questions will be laid out. There are some instances where the test booklet will be blank on one page, and that's just to make sure that if there's a passage for the students to read, the passages will be side by side with the actual questions that go along with that passage. So they have that there. Even though it's an online version, it shows them kind of what the test booklet will look like. And then there is always more information on our website, duvalschools.org. You can chat with Team Duval, and then you can also look under accountability and assessments to see how that test will be administered as well. So that is my presentation, and I want to go ahead and open the floor for any questions.
There was a question in the chat. Someone wanted to know if the test will have an impact on their students' grade.
It is 30% of their final grade. So semesters 1 and 2 will be averaged into one grade. Not semester, my apologies. Quarters 1 and 2 will be averaged into one grade, and then quarters 3 and 4 will be averaged into one grade. And this assessment is that third part. So that's where the 30, it's roughly 33.333%, but each one will get that percentage of your student's final grade.
Can they do Study Island only if their teacher has assigned them a lesson?
They can do any lessons that the teacher has already assigned, and Study Island, if they've already done a lesson, it recreates a new lesson with a new pathway for them once they've already done it. So it won't be like they're doing the same thing over again. The students can access any content, but they can't access any assessment unless the teacher has given or released that assessment to them. But they can access all of the content.
Hello. Instead of typing, I thought I'd rather just
Oh,
ask the question with my voice.
wonderful. Nice.
Thank you for this.
You're
So
welcome.
my student is new to the United States, actually,
Okay.
and so my concern is that he's learned different things in the country that he lived in before that are a little bit different. Right, the curriculum is a little bit different, and so to help him study, he's in the seventh grade. He's in the Comprehensive Science 3 advanced class,
Okay.
and um, so I'm just, you know, you've given a lot of details about where to find study guides, study material. Um, but I'm just a little concerned that there's a lot that maybe, like, I want to go through all that and see what he does know and doesn't know based on what he's learned in the past. And that's why I asked the question about the grade, is that I'm just a little concerned that, while he's a smart kid, he might
Yes.
not, have all he might not have learned everything that's going to be tested because hasn't been going through the same curriculum that the other children in school have been going through.
Correct. So, fortunately, our eighth grade course is designed to go back and remediate because this is a comprehensive assessment. So, it is going to test your student on sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade standards. So, because of that fact, we have created the eighth grade course so that the actual curriculum itself will end in December. And then the teacher has from January until the assessment date to remediate any sixth and seventh grade standards. And our district assessments will assess your student on those previously learned in different year standards. So the teacher will have data from this year on what the student does and doesn't know. So really after January, this eighth grade course becomes very specific to each individual student. So the teacher will have individual activities. So each student essentially after January has an individualized learning plan that will remediate them in the areas that they are low in from the sixth and seventh grade. So those previously taught
Okay.
standards.
And so the class he's in now, which is, like I said, the Comprehensive Science 3 Advanced, that's an eighth grade class?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I'm sorry, you probably said this at the beginning. When are these tests?
They are at the end of February, beginning of April. Normally, most schools don't start at the beginning of the window. Most schools kind of try to wait until the middle. So, honestly, he will probably be testing somewhere between the beginning of or the middle of April.
Okay, but I probably need to reach out to my student's teacher and get the.
Yes, to get a specific day.
Okay.
Yes, the testing coordinators at each school will assign the specific day.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, I think that's it. Thank you again. This was very helpful.
Good night.